Hello, and welcome back to another Mythology Monday with me, your host, Atlas. Today, we are going to be talking about one of my favorite mythological objects, swords. Yeah. Don't worry, YouTube, this is plastic, so it bends. But, I love me some magical swords, swords with meaning, or swords with context. So many great books have swords, and we are going to get into a couple of my favorites. My favorites, there are like probably 1,000 more than I did not talk about, because again, we could be here all day. But to start with, in my series, the Head, the Heart, and the Air, swords have a very important role. Now, there's a whole bunch of different swords, all of which have significance and meaning to them. There is the sword that Alex's grandfather uses to murder her mother in the prologue. So, very beginning of the story, we get exposed to a very nasty sword. There is the sword that Aaron's brother had, his dead brother, Daniel. This is a very important sword because it is the one that is usually owned and held by the heir of Dayton. So, the fact that Aaron's brother dies and he does not get this sword is significant for him in his relationship with his father, but also in his position in the kingdom and that. And there's a set of swords that get forged later on in the series, which also have an incredibly important meaning to them. And it's a unifying thing where it brings a couple of kingdoms together, but it's also emotionally significant for the people who receive these swords. So it is a very important set of swords, which I will say Alex has a hand in helping create. So go her, because she's fabulous. But I love stories where swords have a deeper connection to the characters and also a specific connection to the world itself. So now we're going to talk about some of my favorite swords now that I've given you glimpses into the swords that matter in the Head, Heart, and the Air. So my favorite sword, which will surprise nobody probably, is Excalibur. As somebody who uses Arthurian legend references in my writing, come on, you had to have seen that one coming. So Excalibur is the sword that King Arthur pulled out of the stone, thereby declaring himself as the king of the England and uniting the realm under one ruler. So the sword's significance is that it has been locked in the stone for such a long time, and only the true king was able to remove it. And the value of that was ensuring the rightful king was the one who would claim the throne and would bring the entire world to heed. So it was one of those things where, because everybody knew that the rightful king would be the only one able to pull the sword from the stone, when Arthur came along and succeeded in it, it was very clear that he would be king, and there was less arguing about who would be king, and so people kind of went along with it. Another favorite sword of mine is Sting from The Lord of the Rings. I love the fact that it turns blue when you're near orcs. I just think that is fantastic. I will say I did borrow that from Tolkien as one of the swords in my book. However, it changes multiple colors depending on friend versus foe. So its purpose is not just to warn you when foe are nearby, but also to make it explicitly clear anyone around you is friend versus foe. So you can find out who your true friends are with that sword as well, as opposed to just being warned when enemies are nearby. But I also like the significance of Sting because Bilbo takes it on his adventure to deal with Smaug and help the dwarves get the castle back and that, but then he also passes it on to Frodo, so it continues the lineage for their family and their line, and then helps Frodo on his way to bring the ring back to Mordor. And then while we're on the topic of the Lord of the Rings, I also like, I'm gonna say this one wrong, so Andril, which is another Lord of the Rings sword. It is the sword that was broken and is then reforged from the shards of the Narsil. So the Narsil is broken and it becomes the Andril. It's the sword that got a new name because it was So it is the sword that is given to Aragorn, which he then uses to summon the ghosts in the final movie. And if you haven't seen the movies, well, that's on you, not me. Lastly, the sword I want to talk about is the sword of Gryffindor. And now, I really like that each of the Harry Potter houses has something significant that represents or embodies their founders. And for Gryffindor, it is the sword. And I think the best part about that sword is that it will come to any Gryffindor who needs it. And I like the concept of a sword that can be wielded by the descendants or like the people who embody the values that were held by Godric Gryffindor. So I think that is a really cool thing, that it just appears when needed. And I think that is a lot of fun. And I think stuff like that should be used more often in writing. So let me know in the comments what your favorite sword is, because there are so many more than what I talked about right now. But like I said before, we'll be here all day if I'm just going to talk about all the swords that are fabulous. So let me know in the comments what your favorite sword is. And I can't wait to see you guys again next week for Mythology Monday. Bye!